People of Reddit, what was your "I'm dating a ducking idiot" moment? Story 1. Watched a doc that explained how sharks have electricity receptors which they use to hunt. He said, that's not possible. Sharks are supposedly millions of years old, but we only invented electricity 100 years ago. Story 2. He kept applying for jobs and getting denied instantly. At the time, I didn't understand and was upset for him. Come to find out, this 26-year-old was applying for jobs driving armored trucks for banks, with a record for stealing money from cash registers. I didn't know at the time that he had ever been arrested, but this man literally had robbery and theft on his record, and couldn't understand why an armored truck company wouldn't hire him. Story 3. My ex didn't think it rained over the ocean because there was enough water there already. She was shocked it rained when we were on a cruise. Story 4. He thought the outlet plug covers, for childproofing, meant the outlet was out of order. He literally had nothing plugged into the walls of his entire living room. He also mentioned how smart he was any chance he got. Usually a prime indicator. Story 5. How alcohol content percentage works. We argued for months that 10% as alcohol content remains the same even if you halve the bottle. She said nope, if you halve the bottle then the alcohol content would be 5%. Engineer graduate that too. She works for a software firm. For 12 years. Sigh. Story 6. My ex thought he could play hockey and found what he thought were the holy grail of skates. He bought them for $200. I don't know the prices, it was a long time ago. His friend, who lived in a city an hour and 20 minutes away, told him he got the same skates for $195. So my ex, in his old Camaro that cost $50 in gas round trip, returned the skates he got for $200 and drove 1 hour and 20 minutes to get the skates that were $5 cheaper. That should have been the biggest red flag. But sadly, it turned out I was the fucking idiot who stayed with him for a few more years. Story 7. I had to explain to a grown woman that 20% is not always $20 when converted to currency. Story 8. My first boyfriend was trying to convince me to do anal and told me, it'll feel good because it stimulates the prostate. I'm female. Same guy, it's the male kangaroo that has the babies. Bonus fact, we're Australian. Story 9. Was just lounging about one Sunday and skiing came on the TV. At one point the commentator said that contestants reached 100 km per hour at that point in the race. The ex literally shouted bullshit at the telly. I looked at her and asked why. She replied that there was no way that they could tell how far they'd go in an hour since the race was only 2 minutes long. Another time, I have an aunt who lives in London, is that near England? Story 10. I introduced him to my stepsister. He said, weird, you guys look nothing alike. Story 11. It was 1999 and first was a Marine. What is war like? How many wars have you fought in? When you jumped out of a plane in enemy territory, didn't you think you might get shot down? She asked these questions for months. I would ask what war is going on or what war could I have been fighting in. She was always super confused and would laugh and say I will open up eventually. She told me she told her mom when I got out I was going to make tons of money as a parachute repairman. To this day I have no idea what she was talking about. I told her tons of times I never jumped and it was rare for Marines to be airborne. Story 12. It was when vampire-related shows and movies were in the height of their popularity. He became obsessed with vampires. When we would go outside, he started to act like the sun was hurting him, and he would shield his face with his hands while groaning in pain. Think of Jim from The Office with his vampire prank. Only he was more dramatic. And serious. Story 13. He was trying to make cookies and kept opening the oven for extended periods of time, letting out all the heat. When I told him he was letting all the heat out by opening the door wide open and staring at the cookies, he told me I didn't know how ovens work because the temp setter said 400 so it was 400. Took an hour to bake one sheet of cookies and said, I don't know why it's taking so long. Also insisted on doing this on Thanksgiving, tying up my oven, and was pissed off when he found out the turkey would take 3 hours to cook. As I'm sure you can imagine. Did not work out. Story 14. Do you think getting drunk so often while I was pregnant was bad for him? She said this about her son who was 5 years old and had yet to speak a single word yet. She was not the primary caregiver. Story 15. I went on a couple dates with a woman who owned 2 large energetic dogs. When she bought them she was informed that she'd need to walk them every day to get them exercise and burn off energy. To save time, instead of walking them she'd take them for a drive and thought that accomplished the same thing. Story 16. When he left the window open in the middle of summer because the air conditioning made the house too cold. He didn't turn off the air conditioner and argued that it wouldn't have made a difference. Edit. I want to clarify that he argued having the window open wouldn't make a difference as to how much the AC ran. I got home and the house was warm and very humid. The AC had been running constantly. Story 17. We drove past a windmill on a windy day. She commented how it was too windy out and they should turn the windmill down. She was dead serious. Story 18. He told me he had a lot of inventions, and how rich he will be when one sells. I asked him to tell me more. He says his best invention is eye drops that, with just one application mind you, eliminate the need for eyeglasses. The guy is a mailman, not a doctor, not a scientist, and he wears glasses. So I said, if these eye drops work, why do you wear glasses? The eye drops don't exist yet. But when someone else actually formulates these fantasy eye drops, my mailman friend thinks he will get the money because he invented them by dreaming them up. Edit. I dated him very briefly years ago. He didn't have any patents. Just misguided dreams. Nice guy. Just, well, a special kind of small former coal mining town kind of idiot. Story 19. He put a load of laundry in with mixed color and whites. Poured in bleach to whiten the whites. Was shocked that the bleach bleached everything in the load. I had to explain that the bleach will bleach everything you put in it, as the bleach cannot discern what you want bleached or not. He was shocked, truly stunned and flabbergasted. Story 20. I had an ex that became a nurse. She didn't believe in gravity. I thought she was joking. But she was not. I think that everything has weight, but I don't believe in gravity. Story 21. She didn't know how to get to my house from anywhere but her house. Her work was about halfway between my house and hers, but she had to drive home first every time before she could drive to my house. This was pre-smartphones. Story 22. When I mentioned I was on my period, he asked what my favorite flavor of tampons are. He genuinely thought the colors on the tampon packs were flavors, and that it would soak into my blood while inside and I'd eventually taste it. I'm desperate to know the source of this information. Story 23. Kept telling me not to fall for online scams. She fell for a scam that was so clearly a scam even a brain-dead monkey could see it was a scam. She lost $15,000 and tried to sue everyone who told her it was a scam. She also thought that when the chefs light the food on fire they add gasoline. She tried to do just that. Story 24. She will always ignore the idiot lights in her cars, until they broke down. We bought a car that actually tells you when to bring it in for service. She came up to me, really frustrated, complaining about the car being noisy. She said, there's this big flashing message that says, bring auto in for service, and I can't get it to turn off. What should I do? This person has a PhD too. Story 25. I watched her wrap a potato in aluminum foil and toss it into our microwave. I spoke up and said you can't do that, because of, microwaves. She was 25, looks me right in the eye and says, my mom does this all the time, she taught me. As nicely as I could I explain how she must be mistaken. She digs in, 5 minutes of passionate arguing result in me saying, try it. She forced herself not to react to the volley of sparks and zapping sounds for the first few seconds, just in case it stopped. Looked me in the eye and said, well, it always worked before. Story 26. He didn't know where the ankle was. I hurt my ankle when he dropped me, on accident, and he went to look at it and said it looked fine as he was touching my calf. I was like, well yeah, course that's not my ankle. Silence. Then arguing about how it was my ankle and me telling him it was my leg not my ankle and having to explain what an ankle was. Story 27. Japanese ex I caught sleeping around at the height of the AIDS crisis told me not to worry, Japanese people can't catch it. ETA, wow. Didn't know this would take off like this. Backstory makes it even more absurd. She was a graduate of a prestigious university in Tokyo and earned a master's in the US and had lived here for a while. I had about burned out on the relationship, but this put me out the door. Story 28. I'm a guy from the US, and started dating my wife when she was 23, after spending her first 18 years in Korea. She knew that gay people existed, but thought they were only in some countries, and didn't think there were any Korean ones. Story 29. She was late 30s and thought all bluebirds were boys and all robins are girls. Because that's how it always is in cartoons. Story 30. Had a girlfriend that tended to throw fits for everything. One day she spotted me on a restaurant's terrace on my campus having lunch with a lady. She came storming in like a fireball, started to scream at me, started to insult that poor lady she said was old enough to be my mother. Come on, you understand already, how could she not, and all. When she finished I just said, so mom, this is X, my ex-girlfriend. My mom still brags about the fact that my ex believed she could pull a guy my age. At least she took it the right way, lol. Story 31. When she asked, how long does it take for a boy to grow a new testicle after intercourse? Story 32. We were having dinner when I mentioned I couldn't eat cheese because I'm lactose intolerant. He asked how I could eat eggs. I told him that lactose was found in dairy, which comes from cows. He vehemently rejected my explanation that eggs did not come from cows and were not dairy, and wouldn't believe me until he googled it for himself. Story 33. Dating this gal and we go out on a double date. She's kind of goofy, but more lacking common sense versus like dumb as a box of rocks, until that night. So double date is barbecue, we all order, she gets ribs, so we are eating, she says what part of the cow is this from? We chuckle, she stares at us all, her sister included, and says, did you not hear me? What part of the cow does this come from? We, in unison say, ribs. She responded, I know the name from the menu, but what part of the cow is it? I was done. Story 34. We went to a science museum and saw a display of a carboniferous swamp, and I casually remarked that the land would have been different back then due to plate tectonics. She had never heard that the continents moved, so I explained how it worked with plates moving, earthquakes, and volcanoes. She still didn't believe me. So I found the plate tectonics museum display that explained it all. And then she said she was amazed that I had enough pull with the museum to have them set up a display to support my lies. Story 35. Not me, but my sister. Her husband's car was having trouble starting. She thought maybe it was time for a new battery. He insisted on leaving the garage window open at night so the battery could get fresh air, because maybe the garage was just too stuffy and that's why the car wasn't starting. They have since divorced. Story 36. I don't want to go to St. Louis, it's a dirty city in dirty Detroit. A commercial for the film The Martian came on the TV. Is that a true story? Like, did he really do that? Same person. Story 37, flew across the country to visit family. We took his brother's dog for a walk and all the family members said, don't let the dog off the leash. Towards the end of our walk, he says, I'm gonna let the dog off, and I begged him not to. Eventually I said, if you let the dog off the leash and it goes badly, I will break up with you. It went badly. I did break up with him. Story 38, she was visibly upset, tears and quiet sobs, while we were watching District 9. She turns to me and whispers, when did this happen? As in the mistreatment of space aliens actually happened. Story 39, she thought that if you drive south you were going downhill, and uphill if you drive north. She thought you got exposed with radiation by watching videos of nuclear bombs exploding. She didn't believe that the Earth was just floating in space and was just attached to something, like rope from the North Pole. Edit, thought of another. She thought that the electricity at night was radioactive as it's mainly produced by the nuclear baseline, so would refrain from using electricity at night. Story 40, I had to work overtime so I asked her to go to my house to check on my dog and the litter of puppies. I said they're in the front bedroom in the baby pool. I said to check on the runt and help it attach to the nipple. Her response was, that's so crazy that they can eat underwater. I was dumbfounded. Story 41, dated a guy with hemorrhoids who swore that every time they bled he was just having his period. Story 42, had been casually dating a girl for a few weeks. I was on my way to the mall one day when she called me. She said she would meet me there to hang out. Told her to park on the north side of the mall and meet me at the entrance. Took her forever to show up. She said she got confused when I told her to meet me on the north side of the mall. After a few questions I found out that she thought north was just whatever way she was facing. If she was watching the sunrise she thought the sun rose in the north because that's the way she was facing. Thank you for watching.